Okay, hello, welcome back. So this is part 2 of thunderstorms. So we've been talking about thunderstorms, and we're going to talk in a second about different types of thunderstorms. But first, let's talk about the difference between a severe thunderstorm watch and a severe thunderstorm warning. Okay, a severe thunderstorm watch is what happens when we are looking for severe weather to happen at a future time in maybe 3 hours or maybe 5 hours. But it is not severe weather ongoing at the moment. I have seen severe thunderstorm watches. In fact, I was in high school one time. Beautiful sunny day. Was watching a TV show, saw the little thing pop up at the bottom of the screen, severe thunderstorm watch in place, and I'm like, it's weird, I mean, it's a beautiful sunny day. Sure enough, about 4 hours later, we had a very big severe thunderstorm move through town, and we wound up losing a big portion of a tree that was in the front yard. So severe thunderstorm watches mean that severe weather can happen over the next couple of hours. Severe thunderstorm warning is different. It means that severe weather is ongoing at the moment. So a severe thunderstorm warning is issued when winds reach in excess of 58 miles an hour. Those are surface winds at 58 miles an hour. Reason it is 58 miles an hour and not 55 or 60 or some other round number is because back in the day when airplanes had cloth wings, so this was apparently very well back in the day, at 58 miles an hour, that's when those airplanes, if they were sitting on the tarmac with their cloth wings, would flip over. So that's why it's 58 miles an hour. Never been changed. So you can have a severe thunderstorm warning issued with that, or you can have a severe thunderstorm warning issued when a thunderstorm has hail 3/4 of an inch in diameter or larger. So those two things make it a severe thunderstorm warning. That means that severe weather is ongoing at that moment. Also, you can have a tornado within a severe thunderstorm warning, but at that point it becomes a tornado warning. So we'll talk more about that when we get to tornadoes next week. So there are a couple of different types of thunderstorms. First one, and again, go back to your PowerPoint because I've got examples of all of these, are popcorn thunderstorms. These are single-celled thunderstorms. These are very brief, very weak. They generally pop up and dissipate within an hour. This is what we see a lot here in the South in the summer. You've always got that 20 to 30% chance of thunderstorms late in the day. Most of the time it is these little single-cell thunderstorms. You're driving down the interstate, you run into a thunderstorm, you have to turn the windshield wipers on for about a mile or two, and then it's fine. Or it's raining in the front yard and it's not raining in the backyard. So again, single-cell thunderstorms, very weak. They can produce some brief heavy rain and some lightning, but generally they're going to pop up and go away. They're just kind of scattered throughout the radar map. The second one is a little bit more complicated. It is a multi-cell storm. These are still kind of garden variety storms. The individual cells will last about 30 to 60 minutes, but the whole system could last a couple of hours. So with these, what will happen is you will have a thunderstorm out here. Let's call this number 1. This storm is dying. This one is dominated only by downdrafts. You'll have a storm in the middle, which is in the mature stage. It is dominated by both updrafts and downdrafts. So we'll call this number 2. And then you've got one back here, which is just beginning, and it's dominated just by updrafts. So that's number 3. So what happens is you get one thunderstorm developing. You've got updrafts, you got updrafts and downdrafts, then does downdrafts. Well, as those downdrafts kick out, they may hit another bit of wind and create a new thunderstorm. So as one is dying, one is creating, one's somewhere in the middle. So you've generally got cells in all three, the beginning stage, your cumulus stage, your mature stage, and also your dying stage as well. So you've got different thunderstorms located very close to each other, one dying, one growing, and one in the mature stage. These can produce some small hail, some strong winds. They can also produce some flooding, especially if they happen to be moving in the same direction. And there's a city right here, so they just kind of continue to move over this city again and again and again. That's called training. It's kind of like a train being on the train tracks. We talked about this earlier, where the train just can't take a random left turn or a right turn. But if these thunderstorms continue to move over the same area, it can produce a lot of flooding. So multi-cell storms, generally very garden variety, not severe, but the whole system can last a while. The next type of thunderstorm is a squall line. That's something that we see an awful lot of in Alexandria. This is a very thin line of storms. They can be severe. They don't have to be. But they will produce some very high winds and some very heavy rainfall. But typically, the worst of the weather is on that leading edge of that squall line. And that squall line itself is typically only 10 to 20 miles wide. So once that heavy rain pushes through, then it's just light rain on the back side of it. So a squall line is a group of storms arranged in a line. It's called a squall line. High winds and heavy rain, but typically they are less prone to produce tornadoes. So generally, maybe a severe thunderstorm warning or two out of it, but that will be about it. And they can be hundreds of miles long, but again, not very, very wide at all. The supercell is what we really have to worry about for tornadoes. Supercells are a long-lived storm that is typically over an hour, and that's where we're going to see our tornadoes develop from. These can get as high as 50,000 feet. These are your cumulonimbus clouds. And so check out the screen, and you'll see kind of that hook. Kind of looks like a comma or a fish hook. If we have a supercell, that's where the tornado is going to be. It's going to be in that little hook. It's going to be on the southwest section of that storm. So tornadoes are just one part of a supercell. You can have very dangerous winds. You can also have some heavy rainfall. You can also have some devastating hail in there as well. Not every superstorm is going to produce a tornado, but when we see tornadoes, typically they're going to be coming from a supercell. A bow echo, that's another type of thunderstorm. Bow echoes are typically embedded within a squall line, but they're a part of a squall line. Instead of being in a straight line like most squall lines are, the bow will bow out. So you kind of think of it like a bow and arrow. You pull back on the arrow and the bow bends. So think of it like that. If you do have a bowed section within a squall line, like that bow echo, that's probably going to be where your strongest straight line winds are going to be. Maybe a brief tornado in that. But typically that area, if you see an area of a squall line bowing out a little bit, it's going to be a little bit stronger than the rest of that squall line. The next type of thunderstorm is what's called a mesoscale convective system. Or an MCS, mesoscale convective system. And this is a huge collection of thunderstorms that act as one system. If you look at that picture, it looks like one big gigantic thunderstorm, but it covers the portion of several states. I mean, these can be hundreds of miles wide. A lot of times these will take place and happen in the northern plains like North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, those states. And they'll come southward, but typically they don't get as far south as Louisiana. But they can spread across one state or multiple states, and generally they last more than 12 hours. A lot of times with those, you're just going to be dealing with a lot of very, very heavy rainfall. So again, not really something we see a lot of in Louisiana, but in the northern states, a big cluster of thunderstorms that act together as one big group, and they move, and it moves together. But eventually they will die out, especially the further south they get. And then the last one I want to talk about is what's called a derecho, which is spelled D-E-R-E-C-H-O. D-E-R-E-C-H-O. These are kind of like bow echoes, or rather like squall lines, but they're very, very long-lived. They can go about 240 miles, 300 miles, and they produce very, very powerful winds. Most of that 240 or 250 and plus miles, you're going to be seeing winds in excess of 58 to 60 miles an hour. So they produce an awful lot of damage, and they move very, very quickly. Again, because they can last so long, they will move through several states. So whereas a squall line would generally weaken very quickly, and is generally, like I said, you may see a severe thunderstorm warning or two, but really not that severe. A derecho can be severe. The next slide is actually of a picture taken out of Memphis a couple of years ago. They had a derecho move through that they called Hurricane Elvis, because of course Elvis lived in Memphis, and they don't get hurricanes, so they called it Hurricane Elvis. But it did massive damage across the city, uprooting huge trees that were decades, even centuries old, because it's a very widespread wind event that again can go on for several hundred miles. So again, that is a derecho, and that is a look at our different types of thunderstorms. So one more thing to cover, and that is lightning. So I'll be back in just a minute.